And that was when I knew that once everyone had known and everyone found out, I knew that I had to start making my way out. So there was another incident in October, and we were doing a convention, and Friday was okay. That Friday night, a friend of ours was in a motorcycle accident and was killed. And I remember, like, still to this day, I will always blame him for his death, because he wanted a tattoo out of our booth Saturday. He had, this specific tattoo that he wanted to do. He had his client. He knew, like, he wanted to enter it, like, in this specific contest or whatever. And I remember that morning when I could hear him take that call from our friend. And he was so rude and nasty to him. And so that night, basically he told him no, he couldn't come, he couldn't be with us. But that night, when he should have been with us, he wasn't. He was alone by himself. And he was drinking, and he got in a motorcycle accident, and he was hit and killed. And I still blame him for that. I blame him because, our friend Brent had called and reached out and asked for a favor, and he was so mean and rude and nasty to him that when he should have been with us, he wasn't. And if it wasn't for that, things probably would have been a lot different. So that night, after we found out that Brent had been hit and killed, of course, he was just ridiculously shitty wasted, which I'm sure that he felt so much guilt for. Like, he never said that, but he should have. If he didn't, he should have. And there was a lot of inappropriate behavior on his part. Basically in front of every single person that I know. He was inappropriate with other women there. At one point, like, he was so drunk that, like, he fell down in front of everyone. And that was the second to the last time that, he ever hit me, was that night after we got home. Finally home, I say, because it was a fight, of course. Even to get him home and get him to stop drinking was astronomically ridiculous. Beyond ridiculous. And I knew then I was supposed to renew the lease in October, but I never did that on purpose. I knew that I had to start somewhere, start making my way out of that somehow. And so that was just like a small step, and I knew I had to start saving money to get out. Holidays were coming up, and so that was around the 15th of October. And then maybe 2 weeks after that, I find out that my dad's had, like, health problems for many, many, many years. But he went to the doctor one morning, and he was feeling overtly bad that day. And so then he finds out that adjacent from all of his other health problems, like he's, you know, he has all these tumors, and he's just, you know, he has terminal cancer, and they send him home on hospice, and he lives 8 days. And that was probably the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And then I'm trying to deal with all of his shit and all this bullshit that's going on in my life. And I remember clear as day. So my dad's home on hospice. This limited time that I get to spend with him. And I have to like field these phone calls from my husband. Is that really where you are? Are you really there? Yeah, this is exactly where I'm at. I go to work and I come over here. You know, I remember telling him he was so nasty when my dad was passing. I remember telling him at some point that, you know, one day you will know what this feels like, and I hope you feel it 1,000 times stronger than what I'm having to deal with. Because you can't be supportive. You can't be loving. You can't have any sympathy for anybody because you're a narcissistic piece of shit who has, you know, no feeling, no empathy for anyone besides yourself. And I'm having to take a phone call while my dad is passing in our living room. And you're trying to ask me, is this really where I'm at? Like I'm out running around, like I'm out doing anything but this major, huge thing going on in my life. And I just remember thinking, wow, what a complete piece of shit that this guy is. And I remember my dad did not like him at all. I think he was just like super skeptical about his whole personality, which, you know, it's true. But I remember like my dad specifically asking me one night that if he left me, would I be okay? And I told him, you know, I would always be okay. I would always be okay. He raised us girls to be so strong and independent where we didn't need a man. And I think, you know, he knew that we would all be okay. But I knew that he, you know, didn't want to see that for me for the rest of my life. Because he knew. And, you know, once everything came out, you know, everyone kind of had suspicions about what was going on. I know at least one of my bosses knew. You know, I took vacation twice. You know, once because I had a black eye. And once because I had a busted lip. You know, yay, vacation, right? Got your face beat in, you can't go to work. Like, you're getting paid to be at home because, you're letting somebody beat on you. But I remember that very last argument that we had. And I had gotten to the point after my dad passed where I could not cry anymore. I literally couldn't cry. I had cried every tear that I owned. And it was gone. And the only thing that was left was anger, resentment, and I had thoughts of killing him, honestly. You watch enough Investigation Discovery and you think, I know exactly why this woman is in prison. I know exactly what she went through and probably what her breaking point was to get there. And the only thing that separated me from them was that very last night. I just said, stop. Just stop. I have nothing left to argue with you about. Nothing. Nothing. And I'm done. I'm done. And 2 days later, me and my friend Jessica backed a U-Haul up to my truck and I loaded every goddamn thing that I owned in there. And I called my grandma and I said, I need to come home. And she said, come home. And that's exactly what I did. But it's not, I think the aftermath of leaving is just as hard as it is to be in the middle of it. So my first year here was very, very hard. Very hard. I felt so lost and alone and so sad. Even though I was so grateful to be out of the situation that I was in, I was so sad. And I honestly think like that first year, like I just tried to drink myself to death. It was so hard. But I remember like listening, there was just this one song that I listened to over and over and over again. And I remember being in the parking lot of the bar one night and I had so much to drink. Like, I didn't even need to go inside the bar. I was too drunk to even go inside the bar. But I'm sitting out of my car and I'm listening to this song and I just like have this epiphany just out of nowhere. And I finally realized that who I was so sad for was me. And I woke up the next day and I realized like I have to put myself back together and get all of this goodness and all of this great stuff that I love about myself. And everything that I let some piece of shit take away from me, I had to get all of that back. Was it going to happen overnight? But it was a lot easier once I realized that I had to let her go. That victim, that person that he turned me into, I had to let her go. Because that could not be the rest of my life. It couldn't be. But there is hope after all of this craziness. And as hard as it is to see, and it was everything I've ever said out of spite and probably fear and anger, you know, I'd never love again. I'd never let anybody be that close to me again. I'd never live with anyone again. I would never consider marriage again. I would never let anyone have that ability to have that closeness to do that to me again. But that's a lie, because it does happen. And there's so much goodness, but you have to open your eyes to see it. And you can't be so closed off that you can't even see the good. Because there is so much good. And your life doesn't stop because someone tried to stop your life. So, what I'm saying is, if you are in trouble right now, if you have someone that's hurting you, that's making you feel bad about yourself, that's hurting your children, that's abusing you emotionally, sexually, physically, verbally, you have to go. You have to go. You have to get your shit right now or leave it. Get new stuff. It does not matter. You can always start over. I don't care if you're 8, if you're 80 years old. You can always start over. There are people that love you right now that want to see you safe, that want to see you better and do great things for yourself. But the time to start it is now. You have to go. You can't wait until next time, because next time he will kill you. All of these threats that I've heard for all of these years, he made good on just about every single one of them. So don't wait until someone puts your light out permanently. So you asked who I am. And 1 in 4 women at some point in their life will be a victim of domestic violence. I'm 1 in 4.
Perfect.
Now I can cry. Now I can have a shot of whiskey and like.